want to talk about why the successful on paper life, why your post-divorce achievements feel empty. So you might have left your ex, picked yourself up off the floor, gone into therapy, gone into EMDR, decided that you were going to get the best revenge possible by becoming the best version of yourself. And you doubled down, tripled down on your career or your business. You likely made even more money than you did when you were with your ex. And a lot of people around you might think, wow, she has really come a long way. Like, this is such an inspiring woman. This is such a woman who exemplifies strength and resilience. But what they don't know is that you feel empty on the inside. And I want to talk about why this happens. So let's dive in. The first, most fundamental reason this happens is because you're still using the same inner programming and the same belief systems that have been with you the whole time, by the way. A lot of women think that, the downfall of their relationship was their ex's fault. And this is and I mean, it's not just women, it's men, but since I work with women, you get the point. It's a slippery slope because when we blame the downfall of the marriage or the relationship because he was a narcissist, we blind ourselves to our own dysfunctional patterns that co-created that shit show to begin with. And what will happen, what I've seen happen far too many times, and I have lived this, so I'm speaking from personal experience as well, is that women will make the decision that they're going to become the best version of themselves, but they take with them all of that subconscious programming and those belief systems that they have grown up with, that have been with them for decades, and they just apply it now to their career or their business. So, example, you probably felt like you were working harder in your marriage than your ex was, or working harder to keep the relationship going than your ex was. Maybe you were trying to get him to go to counseling, or you were going to counseling together, or you were avoiding certain topics and you were avoiding things. Maybe you squelched your dreams. Maybe you made yourself small to the point that you weren't even aware how small you were making yourself at the time that you were doing it. You were so thick in the woods that you couldn't see the forest for the trees. And now in hindsight, it's always 2020. Now on the other side of that, you can see, wow, I'm so glad that I'm out of that. But now you're in the same predicament, but just in a different setting. It's the same pattern, different stage. Do you get what I'm saying? Where you are now in a career where you feel like you're working harder than everyone else and not getting the same exchange in return. You might be sacrificing yourself in your career, just like you sacrifice in your marriage. You may be avoiding certain truths on your heart that pertain to your career, just like you avoided certain truths or conflicts in your marriage or your relationship. You may bank all of your identity and your worth on the job title or the money that you have in the bank, just like you banked all of your worth and your identity on the perfect partner for your ex, being the perfect spouse, being the perfect parent, being the perfect wife, however you want to term that. The point that I'm trying to make is that underneath this pattern is still a woman who inherently believes that she's unworthy just as she is. Underneath, as I'm talking to you today, there is still a woman who doesn't feel like she's good enough, who doesn't feel like she's acceptable just as she is, who doesn't feel like she can make a mistake without raking herself over the coals. There's a woman that still believes that she has to perform, she has to work hard, she has to do the best that she can in order to be loved by other people. I'm going to give you an example. I had a client one time, she's coming to mind as I'm talking about this. I had a client one time who had built a really prestigious career. On the outside, it was impressive. She worked for a big government agency. She was in the legal field. Anybody who worked for this government agency, you would immediately lump them in the category of this person has their ish together. And she'd grown up with doing really good in school. What most people didn't know about her was that she grew up with a parent who struggled with some mental health issues. And this parent took up a lot of space in their lives as she was growing up and around her siblings. And what this client learned was that she wasn't good enough unless she was being good, unless she was doing well in school, performing well. She also went on to explore, dabbled in the fine arts, was in theater, and before she went to law school and developed her legal career. What the belief system and the operating, if you will, the OS, the operating system that she was running on, was that she had to perform well in order to be loved. And this set her up for a really unfortunate template, especially in her love life, where her first husband was emotionally abusive, controlling, and it matched her inner operating system of I have to perform well in order to be loved. And she spent almost a decade, if not longer, I can't quite remember how long she was married, but she spent almost a decade in that marriage completely burning herself out. And until there was just no turning back, and she worked up the courage, mustered up the courage, had a plan, and finally left that marriage. And she was single for 5 years. And what did she do in those 5 years? She went on to build even a more successful life. She worked hard in her career. I think she got a promotion or two. She moved into a beautiful home. She took vacations with her boys. She really worked hard on building the life after her divorce. And after 5 years of avoiding dating, not really paying it too much attention, the first person, and by the way, this person had had lots of therapy, was in therapy when we met and we started working together. She wasn't a stranger to self-help, right? But I'm giving you this example to show you how strong this operating system can be and why you're feeling empty, even though you're doing all of the right things on the other side of your divorce. The first person she fell for, after 5 years of being single and building this very successful life, her kids went to private school, everything looked great from the outside in, right? She fell for somebody who was even more abusive than her ex-husband. Why? She'd had therapy. I believe she'd even done some EMDR. She'd focused on her career. She focused on herself. She focused on being a good mom. She did all of the right things, because the reason that she got into another even more dysfunctional relationship was because she still had the subconscious programming that she is not worthy of love unless she's performing. And I see this happen so many times. So the reason that you feel like you've got the beautiful home, you're not walking on eggshells anymore, you can do whatever you want to do, and you don't have to worry about your ex being jealous. You can do whatever you want. But the reason it still feels hollow is because you are likely doing those things to be successful from a place of tying your worth to it, from believing that you need to achieve or perform in order to be lovable. And unless you're not, and unless the only way that you're going to feel lovable is if you're performing or achieving. And this sets up what's called the hedonistic treadmill, where it's like a hamster on a treadmill, and we're trying to reach the next food thing or whatever. And we reach the next goal, we reach the next milestone, and it's never enough. It's like an empty hole. And you probably will resonate with that if you think back to your relationship or your marriage. You're probably trying to get to that fantasy place where everything would be okay. And you spent years doing that, right? And it was always never enough. No matter what you did, it never worked. And you're probably experiencing a very similar version of that now. So the second reason why success can also feel hollow, the biggest reason that I want you to focus on, is that you're building your successful life on the same shitty programming that has gotten you into dysfunctional relationships subconsciously. Like, you're not walking around proclaiming to yourself and to the world that you're unlovable unless you're performing. This is subconscious. Like, you're not aware of it. And it's like, it's so habitual that once you do the work with an expert, it becomes like mind-boggling and eye-opening how much of your life you've lived like this, and how much in a way that you've cheated yourself of happiness and joy because you don't feel lovable just as you are. And when we don't feel lovable, we do all kinds of shitty things to try to get love, and it's not good. Second reason why the success you've created after your divorce feels empty is because there's this surface level or transactional nature to what you're doing. You might believe that if you have enough money, or that if you have enough success, that is going to prevent you from feeling lonely, empty, heartbroken, like the lone wolf in your social circle. It's going to prevent these unwanted feelings that we all try to avoid. And whatever you resist persists, right? So if you're trying to avoid feeling inadequate by doing more and racking up another career certification, another job title, another investment account, and you're doing all of these things, but inside you still feel hollow, it's still coming from that foundation, that inner foundation of I'm unlovable unless I'm performing or I'm achieving. The other reason, this side reason that our success can feel hollow is because oftentimes we view our careers as a way of maintaining control. When you were in a dysfunctional relationship, there was probably an element of codependency. You felt like your emotions were dictated by your partner's emotions and what he or she was doing. And that doesn't go away. We just, again, transfer that same pattern onto our careers. So there's this element of, I've done all of this stuff and I'm doing it because I want to be lovable and I want to appear lovable and I want people to accept and approve of me, but I still feel empty inside and disconnected from myself. Control, that's what it is. Control. We do these things to gain a sense of control over unwanted feelings. And it's like we set up an invisible prison for ourselves. The marriage that you were in or the relationship you were in ultimately felt like an invisible prison. You could leave anytime that you wanted to, but it was like there was this pulling you back to that, right? That's a trauma bond. That goes back to your childhood stuff. The same thing happens when we get into your career and we dump all of the same patterns that we use to survive a toxic relationship or an unfulfilling marriage into our career. The control that we gain is like a temporary fix. The more we control our life, the more we edge out joy, the more we remove the possibility for the unknown, joy, love, gratitude. And we might be happier in our lives now to a certain degree than we were in the marriage or the relationship, but the control element is still there. And the downside of living like this is that you do all of the right things. You check the boxes. If you're a hardworking, high-achieving woman, I know that you're likely a perfectionist and you're likely really good at like getting shit done, right? And when you do all of the right things and you still feel unhappy, it can set you up for feeling like a failure, defeated. And when we feel like a failure and when we feel defeated, we then turn to coping strategies, unhealthy coping strategies, to try to lift ourselves up out of that. And for a lot of women, their unhealthy coping strategies, let me focus even harder in my career. Let me stay even busier so I don't have to face myself and be alone with my feelings. Let me have a bottle of wine every night. Let me shop. Let me go on these vacations. Let me buy the new car. Let me get the new home. Let me do all of these things. And again, externally, it looks like we have it all together, but that in and of itself feels hollow. The point that I really want to drive home is that if you felt empty in your marriage, and you probably did, especially at the end, where the relationship that you were in that really did one over on you, and you've now done all of the right things and you've built this successful career on the outside, you've got this facade going, but you feel empty. That's another empty relationship. But the biggest relationship that is empty is the one with yourself. And nothing in your life will change until you fill the relationship you have with yourself with love, appreciation, abundance, gratitude, and joy. And unfortunately, if you've made it into your 40s or 50s or beyond, that can feel really foreign. And to a nervous system that has habitualized itself to being on the go, on edge, always like trying to prevent the next bad thing from happening. When you date, you're probably like, when's the next shoe gonna drop? I don't know about this guy. You're probably like sizing people up through like really thick trauma goggles, right? When we live our lives like that, we start obviously feeling empty and isolated. And whenever we feel empty and isolated and anxious for a long period of time, whether that's in a marriage and a demanding career where you're burning yourself out, that those feelings become like the norm. Like if we're not feeling those things, then something must be wrong. And we start not trusting joy. We start not trusting that love can be for us just as we are. I had another client recently who celebrated entering a successful relationship, first healthy relationship. She's under 40, maybe 38, 39. But when we worked together, she just exited another toxic relationship, was like, I'm fed up with myself. I have to change. And what she commented on about this relationship was that even though it is the healthiest thing that she's ever been in, there's still a little part of her brain that is going, okay, next week, next month, he's going to drop the bomb on me. He's going to reveal something that he's been hiding from me. Next, there's this little part of her that is still waiting for the next shoe to drop. And this is what happens when you live your life trying to perform your way into being lovable, trying to achieve your way into being lovable, always coming up empty-handed. You stop trusting joy. And some people will just resign themselves to living like that indefinitely. I'm never going to have a relationship. I'm okay with keeping everybody in my life at arm's length. And what happens is that they live a very lonely existence. And they kind of get into this victim mentality of like, the world is out to get me. That's no way to live, right? It's also no way to live to like bank all of your happiness on a career or having success in your life after your divorce. I'm not saying that building a successful life after a narcissistic relationship is bad, but the key is what kind of inner foundation are you building that on? And I can almost guarantee that if you're listening to this right now, you have been building it on the same shitty foundation that got you into a narcissistic marriage or relationship. And that foundation is, I am unlovable unless I'm performing or achieving for people. And there's no other platform to perform, jump through hoops, jump higher, bend over backwards, cut yourself off at the knees, shrink yourself, disappear than a narcissistic relationship. You will do all the bending over backwards and you will never get what you want in return. So if this episode resonated with you, drop a comment, let me know what hit home the most for you. If you are a single successful woman who is ready to overcome the inner foundation of I'm unlovable unless I'm performing or achieving, the first step is to go watch my free masterclass, BethanyDotson.com/masterclass. This will walk you through the 5 steps that I walk all of my clients through, the trauma-informed methods that we use here that are proven and researched to be a bit more effective than traditional talk therapy when somebody has relationship trauma such as narcissistic abuse. If you've seen that, or you don't necessarily need to see that, you're like, okay, I'm sick and tired of feeling hollow. I'm sick and tired. I'm 55. I turn 55 next week. My kids are going off to college in the next 2 weeks, and I'm going to be alone by myself for the first time in 20 years, then I invite you to book a free breakthrough session and go to bethanydotson.com/talk. We'll have a very honest, eye-opening, come to Jesus talk about your patterns from a non-judgmental space. I really want to say that some people are scared to book a call because they don't want to face themselves. But as I said before, what you resist persists. And we'll have a very honest conversation about what's holding you back. The most important part of that call is having a conversation about what you want to create in your life. And if I feel like we can help you reach the goals, not from an achieving or a performing place, but from an aligned foundation place, from a place where you're not performing out of trauma or fear of abandonment. If we can help you overcome the root cause of those patterns and actually create a life that is sustainable for you, attract love, better career alignment, more financial abundance, then I will invite you into my flagship program, Break the Cycle, which is my trauma-informed dating, narcissistic, post-narcissistic life creation program. So again, if this resonated for you, leave a comment, let me know. And then if you know somebody who needs to hear this episode, who's built the life after their divorce, who's a lot more successful than they were when they were in the relationship, but they still feel hollow, then please share this with them because sharing is caring. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.